Well, through traveling, I had to see how other countries, how the middle class and working class in other countries lives way better, especially in Australia. I was in Australia, me and my friends went to the aquarium. Afterwards, we were getting our picture taken. The guy taking pictures at the aquarium said, "Hell, where you guys live?" I said, "I live in New York." "Oh, cool. I'm going to New York soon. From there, I'm going to Miami, and then Chicago, and LA, Austin, Texas, Seattle." I said, "Wait, that's your vacation? You take pictures at the aquarium? And that's the vacation you can take? In your job, the way you make your income, you take pictures at the aquarium? That's your vacation?" Because in America, if you work at the aquarium, you vacation at the aquarium. And you're happy about it. Whatever, we get 30% off chicken strips, it's not that bad. You just make do with what you got. People have this energy about America when you go some places where they blame you personally. I remember I was in Norway. I was at this bar. There's a girl at the bar, she's beautiful. I go up to her, I said, "I think you're beautiful. You like this actress, Kerry Washington." She said, "Thank you, that's flattering. Kerry Washington is beautiful. Are you from the USA?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Ugh! Obama!" What? This isn't the direction I was trying to go with this conversation. But then she had all this stuff she wanted to say about Obama. I had nothing to go back on. "I don't like Obama. I don't like what he's doing with the Israel and Palestine situation." I have no idea what Obama's doing with the Israel and Palestine situation. But I don't want to sound like an idiot, so I got to keep her talking. So I say, "Well, elaborate." Just kept, "I don't like Obama. He's just like a smarter version of George Bush, which makes him more dangerous." And I don't think Obama's like George Bush at all. But at the moment, I didn't have any facts. I wasn't prepped for a debate. I was just overseas trying to smash. But I'm not going out that easy. Like, no. Obama's not like Bush. Obama's cool. Obama, he was on Late Night with Jimmy Fallon. Bush is more like a Leno Letterman type of guy. Obama knows the rules. Bush don't fuck with Questlove like that. What else? Obama has a great jump shot. Jump shot is wet as fuck. What else? No, Obama's nothing like Bush. Don't you talk about my president like that, you Norwegian bitch. And you know what? You don't even look like Kerry Washington. I was just trying to have some slick shit to open with. My thing is, like, what are we gonna do about it at the bar? What are we yelling at the bar for, man? I don't like bar pundits. People just at the bar, the deficit and jobs. Okay, you wanna have a drink or is this your Fox News audition? Because I don't wanna yell about politics at the bar. I'd rather talk about food and video games. Maybe that's short-sighted of me, but it affects my life in a more immediate way. Talk about food. "Hey, man, you gotta check out this restaurant." "All right, I'll check that out tomorrow." "Hey, man, you got Grand Theft Auto?" "Oh, I don't get it yet, but I'll get it in a couple days." But if you say, "Obama's fucking up," well, I'm gonna go grab some food and play Grand Theft Auto. I don't know what you want to do about Obama.
potatoes.
Hello, everybody. The Polycule or PolySpace podcast, whichever one you want to call it. Real quick, I have to get the call set up. My pot now. Yeah. We're doing. All right, I kind of had to go in the bathroom. Also, I'm pretty sure my Spotify goofed and was playing copyrighted music, so I will have to delete that part out of this, which is okay. Shit happens. Uh, yeah, we're trying to get it going. Oh my gosh, can't spell purple. Oh, Lily, can you hear me? Are we there? Sorry, folks. First time back in a while. Oh,
I
oh,
forgot I changed it to push to talk.
oh, okay. I was about to say, where the hell? I was like, what's going on?
I changed it to push to talk because I was in a chat thing and the mic thing was catching everything and I couldn't set the settings. So I was like, I'm just gonna do push to talk. And then I forgot it changed it for all the things. So
Oh, okay.
because it was like a month ago.
Oh, apparently I sound really quiet though. If I sound quiet stream, do I need to turn myself up just a wee bit? Can we hear everybody? Is everybody? Hey, it's Goth Lila. Okay, so we're here, we're live. We're happy to be here. I'm also not up on my mic, which is probably why I sound a little quieter. So we're back with the PolySpace podcast. I say space because I didn't have another term for it.
PolySpace.
PolySpace. And so when we initially started, that was kind of like our little experiment to, see how it feels, to get it rolled out and, see what we can do with it. It now has its own dedicated YouTube channel and this, that, or the third. And, you can go there and sub if you want. I'll put the link in the description. What else am I missing?
Not sure.
Yeah, I think that's it. All right, so a couple of things have kind of changed on the format of stuff. So if you are not familiar with certain things in Poly, we're going to have lots of books and, various things for you to be able to, resources for you to refer to if you want to, get into Poly or if you're considering it. And, we're just giving you the material. So one of the books we have, which I got...
Another thing too is like it's not like well talking about polyspace, but we're also open to all forms of non-monogamy.
That too.
So we'll also be talking about a lot of other forms of non-monogamy, not just poly, but poly is the one we probably will be referencing the most.
Yeah. Because, I mean, it's easier, I think, because when you go through it, it's a spectrum, too, and you have to figure out where you fall on that spectrum, because you don't want to fall into just poly, and, then you see the other things, be like, oh, maybe those are more, so we're kind of giving you the baseline across the board. Right? That's how we want to say that?
Yeah, well, going down the road, into the space of non-monogamy.
Hey.
Woo.
So we will have lots of educational material. Little Donut just referenced Polysecure. I'm gonna check that book out. The one we currently have for the stream that we'll probably be focusing on a little bit for a while until we've both read through it, if you can see it. It's called The Ethical Slut. I've only read a few pages in it because I've been a little busy today. But it's essentially like, I won't say it's a instruction manual.
So the title is The Practical Guide to Monogamy, Open Relationship, and my thing got cut off.
Oh no.
So, open relationships and other freedoms in sex and love. So that's, the rest of the title. And it's been around for a handful of years. And when you look into, when you first type in polyamory or open relationships or things like that, this is the #1 book that's usually referenced, which is why we kind of like wanted to bring it up, because it sold so many copies and it gets talked about so much.
Right.
So
it's a good resource. I don't think we haven't talked about anything specific in the book yet, because I haven't had my chance to read it and Lily hasn't. But we do have a topic for today, and it's mainly posing the question of, is poly for me? Now, let me explain when I say that is like, we're not telling you if it is or if it's not. We're giving you like the rundown of how you can determine on your own, essentially, because we're not gonna tell you it just based off of this. You still have to come to the consensus on your own if you really were to be into that.
Because when we all approach it, it's like when I first, was like, okay, well, I was back in my youth. I was like, oh, well, I'm with my partner. I just want to swing. I just want to have an open relationship. I just want, like, but I was, then I was so closed off to being able to explore more or being able to research more because I didn't have any way of, finding other resources. And it's not something you just go to a library and talk to a librarian and be like, yo, how do you do this? Especially in the early 2000s. So, and I was, heavily Christian based. So to me, I was like, oh no, we can't do this. So when you get into thinking about it, you don't know what road to explore. You're like, there's so many. And each option has its own variety to it as well. That, there's like, oh, well, I want to go down this option, but I also kind of like this option. And like, depending on your partners, you can, you make it your own.
Right.
With good communication. So, but I went totally off track and forgot my.
You went off. No, you were on. You were there. I think that was still on track for where we were going with that. Yeah, it's definitely one of those things where you have to assess the situation of what you're going for, what you're going with, and being your own person in that scenario. There's a lot of times when you're in poly and you just like are exploring those things and it's just a dead end. It feels like a dead end. And
it's like, well, like too is like you go into something and you're like, well, things might change because you might find a partner and you don't want to. A lot of people, what they do is they're like, oh, well, I found this partner and I want to do this, and they like go with that, but they don't take the time for the dust to settle in a new relationship. They don't keep the options open, and then a year later they go, oh, well, wait. So I think that's a thing.
Oh yeah, for sure. I've seen it too. I get that. Goth Lala or Lala. I'm just gonna start saying Lala. I know who this is. They said especially as someone who is new to poly, they are actually new. They're a friend of mine. So what I think we should do is I think we should go over like what. Yeah, welcome. It's a fun world out there. I think we should kind of go over what we define polyamory as, and the different non-monogamous forms that people it takes.
Yeah.
So like for me, the baseline of poly is you have the ability to love multiple people and have those meaningful connections and still maintain a relationship across the board with each person that you decide to enter your polycule.
Yeah, and be that open or closed too. So because so many people think that just because you're poly, there's always room to be open, and that's not always the case. You can have your closed poly will, no, I just need these people. I don't need partners outside of these people. And others like, these are my main people, but I still like to go play with others.
Right.
Physically, for sexually or non-sexual activities. Because in the kinky world, there are, you can have non-sexual partners for those non-sexual activities.
Yeah. I mean, you could have a whole D&D group that's just your polycule and y'all don't do anything. I've seen it. And it's the craziest shit in the whole world. See what did Nick said. I usually include also desire, love more than one person, along with the ability. Yeah. Hey, that's the beautiful thing about polyamory is that you have the option. You're with these people who all share the same ideal with you. And there's sometimes where, it kind of overlaps, not all the time. Everybody in poly is okay being, mutual friends with the people that you associate with. That's something I think is really important to understand sometimes with it. And it's part of the communication, because without the communication of talking to your partner or the people around you, you don't get that. Like, you have to communicate. That's the number one thing I think that, surfaces in poly is the communication.
Yeah, especially as the relationships grows. But I think more so in the beginning, because you have to set, boundaries and expectations. And a lot of people are new to setting that.
Especially in the last
Um,
10 years, I think, like, boundaries and stuff like that have just completely taken off.
and being able to verbalize expectations, because it wasn't until the last 2 years that I even understood how to verbalize my needs or wants or expectations on things. Like, I would be like, use your eyeballs, like, why? And it's not been until this last year how I've been able to be like, okay, I have a mental load of all this shit I'm doing. I need you to take care of this mental load of these activities. And it helps explain the things instead of me just getting frustrated and being like, just use your eyeballs and just look for yourself.
Right.
Because one, it's a lot better in communicating, but that's become a lot more mainstream on how to verbalize your needs. And I think that's been something that's helped a lot of people, really.
Oh, yeah.
The expectations, what they expect, what they're looking for, because that's become so much more mainstream in the last 5 or so years that I think it's helping a lot of people, but it's still new.
Yeah, it's very new. I mean, and a lot of good things about that to understand with it being new is, people are kind of starting to get more. I think one thing, what am I trying to say? One thing that I see from it a lot is you learn patience.
Yes.
You learn how to.
Understanding.
Yeah. Because you don't know what the person beforehand was going through before they got connected to you, and you don't know how new or how. I mean, you might find out at some point, but you don't know where their mindset is with what they're learning. Because everybody gets something different out of being poly at the end of the day. Everybody gets something that's like a, what's the word? They get closure, different types of closure from various things. Whether that, because closure doesn't necessarily have to be traumatic or sad. It can be anything where you're struggling with something and you need the comfort or the extra ability to push through it in some form, shape, or way.
Yes, I mean, being poly can help people with abandonment issues.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You
said it can make them worse.
I said it can be if you have bad partners.
That is true.
Hold on.
Oop. Gotta love that. Yeah, one of the new things that we'll probably start doing too, while Lily's away, is probably at the halfway point that, I found I've been looking up articles, and Nyx is also gonna try to help with some of this sometimes. She's gonna send me some, she finds them. Essentially we'll find Reddit stories to read at the end that correlate with what we're talking about when we get there. But that's just when we're done. Welcome back, Little Donut. So we did bring up the fact that, we would go over some more of the different things. So one of the non-monogamous paths that a lot of people, or that I see people go through, would probably be ethical non-monogamy, or was it ENM? I can never say it because it's so complicated. And essentially, the way I've defined ethical non-monogamy is it goes one of two ways. It can either be a don't ask, don't tell kind of scenario, or it can be like, oh, I know my partner's out doing these things. I get, the information and whatnot, but I don't have any connection to the person that they're doing. We don't talk or anything like that. I just know my partner's out with a different person at this time of that.
And it's usually those usually happen with hookups or regular play partners. They don't have full-on relationships. They're just there for physical play usually.
Yeah. And I mean, nothing wrong with that. That's totally fair. No one's a saint, but it's not a bad thing to be able to go out and get needs met in a way that you feel most comfortable with. I think that speaks wonders for most people when they have that ability to do that.
I mean, yeah, we all have a certain need, and if we want to just be like, well, this is my husband, this is my wife, but I don't want to have another relationship, but I do need my kinky fix, like we all can have a side piece. I mean, there's no wrong, a side piece.
It's always hilarious too, because you always find that happens in the weirdest of circumstances.
And it seems like the more I just stay open to possibilities, the more things just surprise me about myself. I'm like, okay, I guess that's a thing. I didn't know that about myself. Would have never have guessed that about myself, but okay.
Right? I'd say I'm about the same there. I mean, you learn something new about yourself every day when you.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, you learn something new about yourself every day when you're trying to, when you're trying to be your own self. When you're trying to be who you feel you're better at being, I guess, or you're trying to discover your best self.
But I think also too, it can just doing things like to do things for yourself, or conversations you have with people, or like if a new person's come into your life and then like unexpectedly you're like, oh, okay. So but I mean, as long as you keep yourself open and there's always good communication, anyway. We got off track. We were talking about ethical non.
You did. It still happens. It's a curse. It's okay.
ADHD.
So yeah, I mean, I haven't had many experiences with ethical non-monogamy. Most of my relationships prior to entering poly 3 years ago were all monogamous, and then I would say that I had my experience to being open and having an open relationship was one of abuse at the time. So trigger warning. I guess we'll share this. I had a partner who, she loved, to play with me and do the things and stuff. But outside of that, she would say I can't go out with other people and do these things, and I would have to basically watch her go off and do things, and then be given all of the highlights and details, which is never fun for anybody. Some people like it. I'm depending on what it is. I didn't care at the time. It was very traumatic. Now I've gotten a lot better about it. But that was my initial experience with poly / ethical non-monogamy. Was I play, you sit there and enjoy.
Yeah. You didn't like being holded.
Yeah.
Can we say the C word there?
I don't think you can. I don't think you can say that word, but most people understand.
Well, some people it is a kink, and other people's it's not. So, and if it's not, and somebody does something that, I mean, it is traumatic.
And you're right, Nix. That is not necessarily ethical, but at the time, being fresh into it, I didn't know the difference between it being ethical and whatnot. Hello, hey yo, over on YouTube. Appreciate you for being in stream. But yeah, it very much varies on where you fall in those levels of things.
On what thing?
So I mean, it can be one of those situations where you have to kind of understand that when you start this, it's important to start it with people who actually know what they're doing and treat you well. And when you're looking for people who are partners that will, treat you well and do well by you, then that's one of the things I think it matters with, especially with ethical non-monogamy. You want to make sure that all the ground rules are set out, all the boundaries, and there's always an understanding. Why is the Legend of Zelda music playing? Oh, it is Legend of Zelda. It's okay. Turn that down a little. I mean, especially in a situation where you go in the ethical non-monogamy, it's important to just keep yourself safe and keep your emotions guarded and whatnot, and know that it's all. I'm not gonna say subjective. Subjective's the wrong word. It's all. Can't think of the word. There's a word.
I think you need to come up with terms and what your expectations are.
Yeah.
And what their expectations are and how you want to handle it. Because each one is different. And hold on. Apparently the kids want to fight and just disregard the "do not interrupt me" part of everything.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
Do you have to dip out?
No. So we will talk. But in each form of non-monogamy, ethical, in any of the ones we'll be talking about, communication is key, and each role, just because there's a base for how things go, doesn't mean that in your guys' partnership it can't be adjusted.
Right. Because everything is changing. It's like on a slider bar. It's like you might be here one day, but then you're here this day.
And that's the thing too, is even with all of this, like, you need to, even with ethical non-monogamy, okay, if you both go that path, that may change one day. You might have to, your partner might find somebody, a play partner that they've really started to play with and then connected, and then they might want to go into something else or might want to explore something else. And when you get into, I think, non-monogamy, you have to stay open. I think the best way to do that is to stay open.
Open-minded.
With my door open. Open-minded.
Because you never know where the pieces will fall without being open-minded. And I mean, that goes into the same thing as swinging, which when you're dipping into that, that's one of those situations too where it's a level of open-mindedness and communication and understanding that okay, I'm gonna let my partner go do this while I go do my business, but we both know we're safe, we both know where we are, we both know what's going on, we have the boundaries set, we have the baseline for this is what the terms are of our relationship in that.
Yeah, and then some people just might be like, dude, as long as you stay safe and you get regular checkups, I don't want to hear who you play with.
Exactly.
So, like, I don't want to hear when you go out. I don't want to, I want to not think that you are going out.
Right. I mean, that's, I think Go ahead. Sorry.
No, and like that can work for people.
Yeah. I mean, that's the I mean, that's what I've always been told is the don't ask, don't tell route of things, which I mean, it works for some people, but a lot of times it feels like it hurts a little bit more than it does, helps.
Yeah, because it gives you, I think it gives a lot of people anxiety of, well, are they really going out with friends or are they going to fail? And it leaves that, question mark in their head. But I think that's mostly if one person is going out and the other one isn't.
Yeah. But a lot of times you will see where people, will come through and they'll play, but you'll have a partner who has no interest in it or they don't. And I think with ethical non-monogamy, having a partner who's purely monogamous doesn't work all the way. It can work very well with poly, but I know with ethical non-monogamy, I've heard some horror stories.
Yeah.
Let's see.
So I think we're good on that one. Want to go to the next one?
Yeah. Is the next one swinging, or are we dipping back into
Swinging, I thought.
Yeah, swinging. I was about to say. So yeah, with swinging, that is I would say that's purely a sexual, thing. That's purely spicy time with people. That's like, hey, we're gonna go do this. Y'all want to come join type behavior.
Yeah. And that it's not very common, but there are swingers that, swing where they add one person into the couple mix, which is usually a unicorn.
Or a dragon.
Yeah. And or they actually go and they're the unicorns for other couples. So, I mean, I've seen it where swingers have split off to go play, to where a male will go play with another couple and a female will go play with another couple at different times. But again, that's usually it's mostly spouse swapping.
Yeah, that
I mean, that's another older term for it, is spouse swapping.
Yeah, swapping, spouse swapping. They're interchangeable. I mean, and swinging goes beyond. I mean, that's like I remember what was the old '80s thing that people used to have key parties. I think that's hilarious, cause I'm an asshole and I'd be like, where the fuck are my keys at? I'd be digging in the bowl and someone's already took my keys and I'm like, who the hell?
They'd be in some woman's bra.
I'd be like, bro, I'd get mad. I'd be like, don't do that to me.
No, you wouldn't. You'd be like, titties.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if I found them there, I'd be like titties. But other than that, I'd be like, man. But honey, where are my fucking keys at?
But I mean, a key party is you pick a set of keys. Whoever drove picks a set of keys, and then that's how you do that. You swap with whoever you pick the keys off of.
Yeah.
If you picked your own keys, then you put your keys back in the bowl, and you picked another set of keys.
Right.
So.
Welcome back, Lala. Yeah, it's very interesting to think about the different degrees of swinging. I would say, like, the thing with me and swinging, like I don't think I could commit to it being that way because me personally get emotionally invested very quickly with people, or they get emotionally invested with me very fast too. So, which is not a bad thing, not a complaint. Nobody can think I'm complaining about that. It'd just be one of those things where you're either in for it or you're out for it. It just depends.
Well, you also have, I think with you too, is you also have to have the emotional connection.
Yeah, I definitely have to have an emotional connection. I can't just be out here slanging and jumping from one bed to the next.
which again, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, some people, like myself, some things I can do, without a connection, and other things I'm like, nah, I need to know you a bit.
Right.
I can't do that. I need to know you. I need to, get to know you. I just can't just hop into things.
Absolutely
So,
not.
and other people, and it's each their own. Like, how you handle things, it's all acceptable.
Yeah. I mean, I like how my partner Faith and her husband handle it, where, if they do end up in a swinger scenario outside of being poly, I mean, they make it really known with the people, especially at the resort that we go to, that, play stops when play stops. It's not a continuing the next day, but it's also not a super, let's be awkward because obviously we're playing 20 toes to Jesus and something happened, like, or I guess in this case 40 toes to Jesus, but so I mean it all depends on how you view that.
So, like, what did toes have to do with it? And then I was like, oh yeah, all the people. What are you talking about toes for?
I guess that one time it was 30. 30, 10, 10. It was 5 people, so that's 50. Never mind.
Yeah.
But I mean that's where it boils down to is, with swinging, it's a matter of, are we gonna do this because we're having fun or whatnot. Thank you. So, yeah. Swinging's a really easy one to cover, though. Swinging, I mean,
I think it's because it's been so medialized that everybody's, they're like, oh, well, if you're not monogamous, you're a swinger. And those are the most openly talked about ones, I think.
Yeah. I mean, comparatively, people assume that poly and non-monogamy as a whole, or ethical non-monogamy as a whole, are just straight up swingers to begin with.
Yeah.
Which is super wrong, so.
It is.
And I can too count Nick. I just missed my own toes. Phantom person there. That's why I got 60 from. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's one of those things where comparatively, you just have to, like, with swinging, I think it's just a matter of how you handle it.
Yeah, and again, however you and your partner want to handle that and choose who you swing with or who you play with or how you want to. And that's all up to you and communication.
And Nyx makes a good point. She goes, there's also the standard of, if you're not monogamous, you're a slut. Which, as a whole, is not true. Or yeah, or you're going to hell, or, you're a bad person. This, that, or the third. It's the same it's the same tired argument over and over again.
Yeah, but that's with any argument. Anything outside of the box of what people consider, quote unquote, normal or socially acceptable. So, I mean, it's, what everybody was taught this. And it's like, okay, but that's not it. And I think that's something, we'll get into is at some point, not this episode, but is those feelings of, hey, I have, feelings of something, I just don't know where I fall in.
Right.
And I think that's what we're touching on now is like, these are the options, and it's okay if you feel like there's something more than just non-monogamy.
Right. And I could have named this one a little bit better. Is poly for me. Maybe is non-monogamy or non-monogamy for me. Because a lot of times I think that even as poly people, we get wrapped up in assuming that everything flows back to poly, when in actuality, the different branches of non-monogamy have their own things and their own subsets and rules and ways that people go about it.
Yeah.
So I'll probably change that title. But
well, I mean, it's a poly space because we're poly people. Well, Polly Pockets.
Polly
Yeah.
Pockets. We are the Polly Pockets. Come to
so
us.
disappointed when they came back with those and they were not the same. Had rubbery feet.
Ew.
I was on FaceTime live with my best friend at the time, going, look, bouncing up and down, screaming inside Walmart when I found Polly Pockets, came back. And then I got like 2 of them and they had rubbery feet. And I'm like, they don't stay. They don't. I was so disappointed.
Oh. Oh.
I was like, my toy was not the same. I was like, this was so not
Disappointing. Okay.
Yeah, I got sidetracked.
I think that we've covered all 3 pretty good though. I would say. Oh, go ahead.
Non-monogamy, swinging. I don't think we've really touched much on the poly though. How that? I mean, we touched on it at the beginning.
Yeah.
But then we got to talking about the book and stuff too.
Yeah.
Not sure. I mean, those you can always make things your own, like we were talking about before too.
Yeah.
Is you can always branch out, and I think there's so many branches of different types of poly.
Everyone poly is different, essentially.
Yeah. So many varieties of it, and misconceptions too, because everybody's like, oh well, if you're all dating each other, that means you all have to be sleeping with each other, and that's not true.
Ew, that's not true at all.
And you don't have to have big orgies. You don't have to, like, just because I have 2 partners don't mean that I have to have threesomes.
Right.
I can have individuals and keep it that way.
Right.
But others can. Others are like, nope, we a big orgy family. Like, which is fine. It's however you want to do the things. So, but that's not usually the case.
No, it's not. I mean, if you look at it, when you have multiple partner scenarios and you have things where it's like, for example, triads. Triads are like I think they're the most commonly thought of forms of poly that people consider, especially couples who are trying to find, like, a guy who's like, my girlfriend needs a girlfriend, or a woman who's like, my boyfriend needs a girlfriend and or a boyfriend. I mean, vice versa on both ends. You're just trying to find your partner, another partner, or, you're trying to, because a lot of times with triads, depending on how it flows, a lot of times it's 2 people seeking an individual. And sometimes you do find, the individual seeking, 2 partners, but it's also a very closed-in environment. You can either, and with a triad, you can either leave it closed or open, which just means closed, it's just you 3, or open, you can all play as you please and do as you want.
Yeah.
I prefer open. One of my ex-partners was actually in a closed triad before she had got with me, and her experience with it was the fact that, it just seemed like they only had her around when it was convenient. I mean, and another thing with, like you said, Lala, like you're saying, the connection with you and your partner, with the third that you've added, it felt safe. Sometimes there's strength in numbers, and I think that's where the idea comes from too.
Oh, that can be, yeah.
I think it also gives people like a sense of learning, like, quality over quantity, or quality over, non-sequential things to that, like, your looks and whatnot. Because the quality of a person, like, I would say the level of the quality of people that do poly versus the level of the quality of people that do monogamous dating, it's night and day. It's night and day sometimes.
Yeah. And I think the ones I have come across that the poly people I've come across to the monogamy only ones, their understanding of communication is usually on point versus just when like, oh, and then you've got like you have to talk to them about all this stuff and teach them, and like, okay, well, but they're a lot more open-minded.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Not to say other people, not to say that you can't have people that are open-minded that are monogamous. I'm not trying to say that.
Yeah,
Like, there are open-minded people that are monogamous.
there are
It's
tons.
just like when you're trying to date, um, those people you'll come across that are closed-minded to it, and other people are like, oh, and you get the able to communicate better people. I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. Mine's always lost. That's not true. That's not true. Oh yeah, I mean, my favorite thing that I love to see, and they left chat for a little bit, but my partner Donut, they have a monogamous partner and they're poly. So it's like I said earlier, where sometimes you will be in those situations where there's a monogamous person with a poly. It can work. It takes an incredible amount of communication, trust, and understanding for it to work. And it takes one of those things where not necessarily you're taking a backseat to the poly people, because 9 out of 10 times, if you're the monogamous one, or at least from what I've seen, 9 out of 10 times, you're the monogamous one, and the other person's poly, you're normally in a form of hierarchy over the poly people, which isn't always a bad thing. There's like, as much as a lot of people bash hierarchy and poly, it does happen, and it's not a negative thing when it does happen, because sometimes it's situational,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Because I mean, especially if you're starting out later in a relationship and you're getting into it after the relationship has formed. Because you're both wanting to experiment or something like that. And then you both have come to the conclusion that you'd like to be poly or explore down a non-monogamous route with each other. Likely you guys got bank accounts together.
Right.
You have mortgages or car payments or things like that together, which puts a different position on that.
Right.
So that's there's going to be that that's that level of, well, we can't all just live together because we have kids and or this or that, depending on when you're coming into it in your life. Like with me, I'm coming into it later with elementary school kids, so it's like trying to introduce my kids to this, especially with my horrible ex, is like a no-go. Nope, that has to wait for them. So me living together and everything, like, there has to be a thing.
Right.
Everybody has their own circumstances with putting a value on a primary or nesting partner or things like that. When it comes to poly, it's really hard in a polycule to not put a value up on it unless the whole polycule lives in the house.
Right.
So unless you have like 3, 4 or more people living in a house, the whole polycule living in a house, it's hard not to have a value system.
Right. What do you mean? It gets to be. It doesn't get to be tedious. What's the word I was looking for? It gets to be very, not stressful. It's not a negative word. Jesus Christ. I mean, it can be. it gets to be challenging at times where you're trying to balance the things inside of your poly relationship versus outside. And all that really takes is, being able to say, okay, let me take a step back and not lose myself. Because you got people out here who got 10, 12 partners in like 3 different states and just be rolling with the punches. And I mean, it's hard.
I don't know. The ones I've come across with that are the men that just half of those women are regular play partners. They ain't dating them. They just take them out on a date before they do stuff with them.
That does happen.
And that's I don't know the official term for them. I call them the harem men.
Collectors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're harems. They just want a harem. That's all they want. And so I'm just like, no.
I mean, and my favorite thing about it is people who confuse, having lots of partners for just being a straight up harem. There's a difference between actually giving people individual time and, being their partner versus, just being like, hey, I'm in town, you want to bang? Kind of vibes.
Let's go to dinner and then bang.
And then, like you don't talk to them for 3 months.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my partners, one of my metas, she was having that issue. And I'm like, it's not. I was like, that sounds like a play part. He's got you as a play partner because he doesn't want to talk to you and he only contacts you when he wants to bang.
Yeah.
And she's like, well, I'm his poly partner. And I'm like, but a partner is, a relationship. So, and then we had to define that. What she thought of as a relationship. Because, we all have our own definitions of what we value as a relationship and what we have as a non-relationship. So, because I put a value on partners and friendships with benefits and everything at different values than what you may. So even though they all come with like a base code, they'll still like the expectations of what that is can differ.
Right.
Everything is still subjective to the person involved.
Oh yeah, for sure. It all just depends on what's going on and how we're all reacting to it. I mean, a lot of times you see it in. I mean, my favorite thing is the guys who, and I've read this. Like I said, I've been reading Reddit stories for the past like 3 fucking weeks, and I tell you, I read these stories where I hear about men or women who have partners who live far away, and and it's just ridiculous to see how they treat the relationship badly. Or they don't give the attention needed, and then like they cause rifts in other parts of relationships because of that, and you're just like, what the hell? Some people, it's just weird. I mean, it goes back to the people who are just collectors. You're not even trying to actually put forth the relationship. You're just picking up whoever jumps in and saying, yeah, it's a relationship, when in actuality it's not. It sucks for those people that have to deal with that.
I'm a collector of friends and I need to stop.
Say what?
I said I've developed a following of guy friends that want to be benefits, and I'm like, I haven't done any benefits, and I'm like, you gotta show me a fun level first before you get any benefits.
Yeah. Always try to put in that friend element because it helps.
I'm like, I've got a collection of guys that want to be friends with benefits, and they still haven't shown me the friends part yet. And I'm like, well, then you don't get the benefits.
There you go.
Because I'm not doing it.
Taylor over on YouTube, they say, or some are aware of how pushy they can be, or not put feelings into consideration. of their other partners. Absolutely. You got people on. I mean, it happens in poly. It doesn't happen as much in poly where you have people who don't respect a person's feelings, or even the fact that they're like they're being pushy, and like they want more, obviously more than just friends, and they want the bang. But like, it
Well, when it comes to men, though, um, don't get me wrong. I love you, and you are not this way. But you don't count in this statement. There are a lot of men out there that are just stupid and ignorant to how to communicate and to help, like, with the mental load or thinking outside their own box. They're the ones that you can flirt with them, and they don't know that you're flirting with them until you say you're flirting with them, or do something to really get their attention. They'll so encased in simplicity that they don't. So anything outside of that, they don't see. Like, I had a partner who did parallel poly, and he didn't understand why I kept telling him, well, you gotta go check with your other partner. You gotta go communicate that with your other partner. And he'd just be like, why? If this is our relationship, why does it involve their wheel? And I'm like, because she's going to have feelings on that, on our side too. And I kept having to explain that to him because he's like, but this is our relationship. What goes on between me and you is between me and you. It doesn't involve her. And it's like, but it does. Just like what you and her do also involves me to a point. There are some things that, because he wanted the parallel poly and not the kitchen table poly, some things still overlapped. So, especially emotionally. So, yeah, but there's a lot of things where men just don't. It's not that they don't want to change, because he wanted to be caring and understanding and be supportive. He just hadn't learned how to communicate that or see things that way because he's never been taught.
Right.
And again, we come back to, we got to learn to communicate better. We got to learn to set our boundaries and our explanation of, hey, I have this expectation. If you're going to do something like this, can you inform me so where I don't feel sad, depressed, disrespected, whatever negative emotion, and then be like, oh, I didn't realize you got that negative emotion over that. That's if they don't automatically go into defensive mode, because there's so many videos out there of housewives being like, oh, my husband, and you see all those videos of the housewife going, but I just need help with the house and the kids, and the husband being all upset, and
Right.
you always you gotta sit down, you gotta learn to communicate, you gotta not be defensive, and you gotta teach. A lot of times we gotta teach men how to communicate, even if they are included in it, because
Right.
sometimes they'll just too simple. They just see sex, and then that's all they see. They just see, oh, let's just do this, and they don't think that the emotional output or the pre-planning or the mental load that went into an activity or anything else about that, or the calculation in our heads of, okay, this is going to happen, and we've set up all these expectations while doing all this stuff for an event or thing, and then the guy's just like, dude, and then we get all pissed because of something. So,
and granted, it's a not all man thing, and it's also it can happen on the opposite side of things too.
yeah,
with women, but men, we kind of do it a lot. I'm waiting on my fuck up with that Superman.
It's just more wide streamed in the media section right now for men. So a lot of that's why I was mostly bringing that. Plus, they were talking about how men can be inconsiderate. Yeah, they can be inconsiderate and not think about the other partner, but that's just because men can be simple-minded and just not think of it. Uh-oh. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Or when it's
okay.
I'm eating a sandwich.
Oh,
Yeah,
I got you. I don't have storage up. My computer had to do an update and stuff, and
no, it's all good.
won't let me sound on my phone.
So when we were early talking about, we brought up two different types of poly. We brought up, kitchen table poly and parallel poly. So I would say with the consensus of most poly relationships, they lean more towards kitchen table instead of parallel, because I would just say kitchen table is a lot easier because there's an open channel of communication, or there's some connection where everybody has their hand on the table essentially at the same time, if that makes sense. Or everybody has like a dish associated with the table, and that's what they bring to that collective group. Not necessarily because everyone's together, but because whoever's sitting at the head, has that piece that connects them. As to where parallel, at least to me, looking at it, is more disjointed.
It can be. I know somebody that has parallel poly that they say it's very. Their poly is very complicated, but they do it. But yeah, for the most part, it is disconnected. Like, I don't get to talk. Like, I wasn't able to talk to the other partner. I wasn't able to bring up anything. Wasn't supposed to know outside of the fact that they were going to go to that partner's house. I didn't get any other information. I wasn't shared anything about the life, any of the stories, anything that they did. It was completely closed off. And a lot of times, because that's their relationship. And then they come back and, this is our relationship. And neither two should meet. That's how it's been explained to me on 2 occasions. So
It just comes across as weird to me. Like, I don't ever really understand why the two people can't meet. I can understand if you're concerned about whether or not they get along, but personally, I'd rather just rip the Band-Aid off and move on. Because another thing people will have a misconception of is that everybody likes everybody in poly. There are lots of situations where you will have one person, you have one partner, you have another partner, and they can't fucking stand each other.
yeah, like, that one's just too annoying. That one's just not, no. And it happens. It's not, but I think, with parallel poly, they don't want to deal with it. Plus, they think too much that, because the two relationships don't collide, they don't need to communicate what's going on from one relationship to the other because it's so secretive.
Right.
They don't need that extra communication. Well, with kitchen table poly, there's open communication of, hey, me and this person's doing this, and I'm open to have feelings about it. Well, with parallel poly, they don't want you to have feelings about what is going on that relationship because I'm not involved in that relationship, or the other half isn't involved in that relationship.
Right.
I keep referring to me because I tried, I'm kitchen table poly, and I tried to be poly with somebody that was parallel poly. It didn't work out.
they're also kind of new to poly too. So I mean, you have to.
Yeah.
That's always and like we've talked about how there's a difference between people who are into poly, like they were already there, like they're naturally poly, and then people who are just now joining. And I'd say naturally poly is in like there's always been a sense of poly in that person.
Well, a sense of non-monogamy.
Yeah.
Like you've always had a feeling like one's just not going to be enough at something, or you've always had some sort of sense of being out of the traditional box of what society says a relationship should be. And then there's other people that have had relationship trauma and decide that they can't be monogamous no more because they can't put the whole self into one person, and they want to try poly, so they have more benefits of not destroying themselves.
Right. I mean, I would say the relationship trauma is a big like aspect of people who tend to go into poly, or at least a lot of people join poly because they have that that negative they have that negative thing where you were monogamous, and then you trusted a person, the person started doing really bad shit to you, and now you don't feel you have a binding to this or that or the third, and now you need to branch out.
Or you could just be, I'm scared to commit my whole self into that one person because you feel destroyed and devastated, and that you're not yourself without them. And so by branching off and having two partners, if one of them goes away, you're gonna have you're not gonna be totally devastated, which is actually a misconception.
It is such a misconception.
because you still put your whole self into each relationship.
Right.
You still love them, you still care about them, you're still going to be heartbroken. And depending on how you love, you can still be completely crushed, even if you have both partners plus one.
Yeah, I'm a big fucking crybaby, so I know I would. Yeah, I'm such a crybaby. I feel devastated even if it's for the smallest reason. And like typically, it only really hurts my feelings super bad when it feels like it's an unwarranted break, or like it feels like it wasn't. I'm trying to think of the best way of putting it. It feels like it wasn't supposed to happen.
Without explanation doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Because sometimes some people leave you with some dumbass explanations.
Yeah, and you just go, I don't get it, and it hurts. Like, how does that make logical sense? Or that wasn't something I did, that was something you did. So,
and at the end of the day, people just tend to, fuck about, and it's like Dona calls it. When it gets to that point, that's what we call polyfuckery. So,
yeah.
So, yeah. If you're gonna be poly, rule of thumb is don't play games. Be 100 with people. That's the best rule of thumb with it, at least.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we kind of touched on it enough on all the points, and at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, if you're making the decision to be poly, it's always the question of, am I okay with the da 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 da? Am I okay with sharing a partner with somebody else? Which I hate using the word sharing because I don't see it as sharing per se. I see it as you're getting this bit of the partner, someone else is getting that bit of the partner. You're just occupying the time of the person differently, doing different things. Or like, are you able to emotionally, handle seeing your possibly at some point seeing your partner with another partner, knowing they're going out and dating, having the emotional intelligence and emotional maturity to handle those things.
Yes, and communicate your expectations too of, hey, I need you to communicate these for me, for
Right.
where I can help with my jealousy or my this or that. Because I mean, that's not outside of the realms. I mean, because we all get jealous, but um, you can bring up like, oh, hey, can you not watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine with somebody at the same time you're watching Brooklyn Nine-Nine with me? Like, is that because that would make me feel like that's not our show no more, or feel like that's our show. Like, that's a way to communicate that. That's something simple that can also be hurtful.
Right.
Right. So, and people don't think of things like that.
I mean, and I know to a degree, some people will probably go, well, that sounds really petty. Not really. If you have, there's nothing wrong with sharing your interest with other people. It's understanding how sharing that interest with other people affects the people that were there before, if that makes sense. It's like if you start Brooklyn Nine-Nine with somebody, don't start it in the middle of the season where you were already starting with somebody else. Start it from the beginning.
Yeah. So, but like if you started watching, like if say Donut's never seen it, and then you also started watching, I'd be a little hurt. I'd be like, I know it's your favorite show, and like, but can we at least get through it? Like, we only on like episode like 8 of the first season. Like, can we at least get through a couple seasons before you introduce another partner to your favorite show, and do the one-on-one time with? Because right now that's our bonding time.
That is our
That's
bonding
that's
show.
our bonding time.
The irony is that is our
So,
like bonding show. That's to sit on the couch and watch. And let me explain why this is this way, because this character's stupid shows. Which is, it's a good show to watch. I love it. That's a good comedy that I recommend all couples watch.
and I would have never watched it because of the one dude. But and then you've introduced me to it, and I'm like, yeah, this was worth starting to watch.
I'm good at that. Oh man, we've been at it for like an hour and 20. Do you think we have time to go over a Reddit story?
Yeah.
Okay, let me pull up the one that I found. So this one essentially was, how do I know if I'm if polyamory is right for me? Okay, so it says, first I want to clarify that I am not seeking advice on my current relationship. My partner, 26 female, and I, 36 male, are in a challenging transition in our relationship. But I have the support of a couple therapists who specialize in non-monogamous relationships. They're my own therapist of 3 years and a large network of shared and personal friends who understand both of us and the context of our relationship. I am only sharing these details for context, but I am only seeking perspective and insight from others who have asked the following questions to themselves. How do you know if poly is right for him? I feel like saying seeking perspective and insight is the same thing of asking for advice, but that's just me. So let's see. I have been interested in C&M or E&M. I don't know what C&M is. We may have missed one.
Well, that probably because it's a different thing.
Yeah, consensual non-monogamy. I mean, all consensual. I don't know. C&M or E&M. consent. I mean, that's what I'm thinking. Nick's seeing him, but I don't know.
Consensual non-monogamy is an umbrella term for relationships in which all partners give explicit consent to engage in romantic, intimate, and/or sexual relationships with multiple people.
Oh, okay. So it's the same thing as non. It's okay. It's just using consent instead of ethical. That's fair. Okay. So I've been interested in seeing him or E&M for much of my adult life, and I've only actively explored it with my current partner of 3.5 years. It was an interest my previous primary partner and I shared and discussed in past relationships, and the acknowledgement that you can still be attached to others when appropriate, act on those feelings while maintaining a committed, respectful relationship has always resonated with me. Also, a high libido. As a high libido individual, the physical aspect of non-monogamy has always piqued my interest, but I have found that more often I'm drawn to the perspective of developing and maintaining deep emotional connections with multiple people, and I have long wondered if I am capable of maintaining deeply emotional romantic relationships with multiple people in a sustainable way. So actually, the funny thing about this one is it brings up the ethical slut. They go on to say that I have read books on this topic, opening up and the ethical slut, and attended workshops, seminars, recurring informal support groups for non-monogamy and polyamorous individuals. A close friend of mine has produced a podcast on the topic, and I have had many open discussions on polyamory and open relationships over several months with the host and most of the guests. In spite of this, my first entry point to any concept of non-monogamy came through many outdated means, hearing gossip around infidelity between parents at a young age, or being on both ends of cheating in my adolescence and emerging into adulthood. I'm sorry, folks. I'm terrible at reading. Just joke there, but I'm not gonna make it. Learning about sex and love addiction, popularized depictions of swinger lifestyles as a vice, depicted in pop culture, film, and television. It was only until my late 20s when I was first exposed to the concept of ethical non-monogamy, and it shifted the paradigm entirely. I understood there's no way to love. I can't read. And their spelling sucks. And the concept of monogamy is deeply rooted in outdated concepts, capitalism, possession, and ownership. On both a personal and philosophical level, this new way of loving resonates with me wholeheartedly. I mean, they go on to basically explain that the things they've read in various articles and whatnot have helped them find the root. The reason why I'm not reading all of it is because we'll be here for like a whole nother hour. But I mean, you have to think about it just reading that small excerpt, they've already went through the fact that, media and, the way it's depicted in various forms of things, whether that be movies or pop culture reference and whatnot, it's kind of skewed the view of ethical non-monogamy as a whole.
Well, yeah. But I mean, anybody grown up before the late 2000s, is gonna have an issue with monogamy. I mean, anybody anything from 2000 into the 1900s, and us old people, okay, there's gonna be some sort of form of religious bearing or cultural different where it's just shamed on.
Right.
So it wasn't until 2010 8 or more that it's really started to kick up. Like
Yeah.
the late 2005.
2005 to like 2010, probably.
Is when it really started, okay, well, those, because that's also, it types of relationships also went in with sexuality.
Yeah.
So when people started accepting more sexuality, they also started opening up a little bit more to different types of relationships. So I mean, at least in media culture.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like in the media, and I think, it again, it wasn't until around that time that media and the culture and that started changing when it came to that. So anybody that's pretty much over 18 is going to have some sort of a parent that talked about, or some sort of relative that talked about how it's not, there's some sort of shame to it or anything else like that. Like you should always be monogamous, like in the upbringing. So I don't think that should really matter much.
Yeah.
In that case, but she did talk about how she's done a lot of research and she's went to conferences, and I mean that's the best thing to do, is to talk to people, to look into it, and if her partner is open to it, I mean, go on a trial basis. Talk to somebody else about, hey, I've talked to my partner. Well, this is like my primary partner, and me and him have these terms, but I'd like to explore a deeper relationship with you, but I'm not sure how my mental state or how I can do that. Can we explore this? I mean, if she's open with her second partner about that, I don't see any reason for her not to try. It seems like she's done everything in the book except
Actually trying.
Like she's, she states that, she's done ethical non-monogamy. She's she's talked to therapists, she's went to conferences, she's read books, she's done everything but actually do it.
And sometimes it just takes that extra step. And sometimes people just aren't ready.
Yeah. So just and that's fine, if you like, hey, I have these feelings, but I haven't found the person yet to test it with.
Right.
Because that could be the thing too, is you can be like, I want to try this, and that might be the step she's at, is she just hasn't found the right second partner, and that might just all be what she wants, is two partners, and she needs to find that second good fit. But she's not gonna get that second fit if she's not dating. But then again, she could just be waiting for that person to just all have chemistry, like, because some people you do just instantly have a connection with.
Yeah.
You don't know at what level, but you instantly know, like, that person's gonna be in my life for a long ass time.
Right.
Like, you in my life, like, we just met, but you in my life for a long ass time. Like, I don't know how long, and it better not be me that causes for you not to be in my life, but you're gonna be in my life.
Right.
Like, and she might just be waiting for that person.
Yeah.
To take that step, which is fine.
It's definitely food for thought when it comes to that. It's like Odd says in the messages, is like looking for insight outside of like the research that she's done. And then also, the fact that a long time ago the Greeks literally had boats just for, pleasure and love and whatnot. Oh, so hold on. Heyo on YouTube asked, "What is kitchen table poly?" So essentially, what kitchen table poly is it's when all of, say you have a person, like the primary person at the head of the table where everyone branches off of, you are all of their partners are essentially sitting at the same table and have all of the same information on all the things about what's going on. And like I wouldn't consider it like a gossipy kind of thing. It's one of the situations where the communication is there. Like if I'm with Donut, then everyone will know that, oh, I'm with Donut right now. Or if I'm with Nyx, everyone knows I'm with Nyx right now. Or if I'm with Faith, everyone knows I'm with Faith. So it's essentially it's the open communication version of Poly, the more open communication.
And then at the same point, like for your birthday, we can all be at the birthday party and celebrate you, or for the ones that can, and like we're all okay being in the same space too. Like it doesn't usually always have to be the same. Lots of times, you don't really get to meet the other partners, but you can talk to them and be like, yo, hey, why you at, Faith, say hi for me, you know, that kind of thing. But other times, you can do events together,
Mm-hmm.
family functions together and things. Like Phoenix can have all of us over for his birthday, or a picnic, and be like, I want, my polycule all over, and we can be like, okay, you've set a date and everything and whatnot, we'll see if we're available on that date and we'll be there. More than likely we're all gonna make it happen. But well, others, it's a but that's, I think that's how we do it. I mean, with me, I'm just like, we're all chilling together. My whole thing is like, I want us all to like exist in the same room together. So that's how I do my kitchen table poly, is like, I want all my partners to, after a certain time, I'm like, okay, I want us all to like hang out and watch movies all together. You can have your one-on-one time, but after a while, like, I want us all to be like, yeah, not live together, but because I can't afford that. I went off the tracks.
No, you didn't. You're good. You're right. I mean that's essentially what but I mean that's essentially what it is. It's a group effort to be all in one. And it's, I mean, not every polyamorous group is like everyone's connected, everyone has everyone's number and talks to everybody. But at the same time, everyone knows what's going on with the various people when it's going on. Like for me, I don't need to have activities where everybody meets everybody. I would like everybody to at least know everybody to a degree and understand who the person is to me, and like, where the pieces fall in that. But it's not a requirement to be like, we have to do all the family functions together.
Yeah. I think with me, the way I handle my kitchen table poly is like, I have no problem being like, yo, Phoenix, this happened between me and Giant. We did this thing and it was so fun. This whole event thing was so fun. Like, oh my goodness, like I can share like we went to whatever and it was a cool thing. Like, here's all the pictures of the amusement park or the arcade or whatever thing. Like, I can be like, oh yeah, and because I'm talkative and I'm open and I share way too much information all the time. So that's how I do my kitchen table poly. So
Fair.
and I'm on because I mean I share everything with you.
You do everything. Yeah, I think, I mean, it's always the interesting thing about poly, and I would say it as a whole, is that a good it's it's a good lesson in a lot of things: consent, patience, understanding, and communication at the foremost of it. And it's all about taking that time to grow in it. Because when you start, you're a baby. Everybody's a baby in poly. There's not a person that's not a baby in it. And they eventually grow to where they've I won't say essentially mastering. I don't think there's a good way to master poly. I think that you have to learn how to compensate for what happens in poly before you master it, or before you can fully master it. Because, like, you'll learn something new about poly every day if you pay attention to it.
Oh yeah, I mean that's all. I think that's also the key to any of them is again that's the keeping open minded too. Because if you're closed minded when you go into it, which I mean you're going to start, anybody that's going from monogamy to non-monogamous relationship, you're going to still have that stigma. You're going to step in, you're still going to have that stigma in your head and everything, so that you're going to be fighting. And it's really difficult not to close yourself off to things. But at the same time, you might need to close yourself off to other things to help you. Like, I can't process that right now, so we're not interested in that route. We're not gonna go down that route. But to keep that route completely like blocked up and be like, I'm never going down that route at the start.
Yeah.
When you get into non-monogamy, then it's gonna be even harder to even look at that walled off area.
It's effectively,
because you walled yourself off again to something that could help you later. You might not be open to it, at the beginning of non-monogamy, but here in a year or 5, you can look at that wall or that path, I should say that path, and that path could be open now. And instead of there just being a light fog there, like, okay, I know the path is there, but I'm not going to go it. I'm not going to look at it. Thus, closing yourself off completely to that path is, I see a lot of people do that because they've got that stigma in their head and they go, I can't be monogamous because, I'm married or I want, I want a wife and I want kids, or, I want a husband and I want kids. And so they think that they can't have these things if they're poly, but they can have them if they're swingers.
right.
And, like, oh, I can never be poly. So they close themselves off to something that could be beneficial later, or that, and depending on when you're stepping into non-monogamy, it's just always a good idea to not wall off all options or routes. Just because you can't handle that path now doesn't mean you should close it off completely.
Yeah.
So staying open is always a good idea, regardless of where you're at. Because life is an entirely different journey, and you never know where it's going to take you to begin with.
Exactly.
And you might just find a person that you just go, well, I wasn't expecting that out of myself. Like, that person opened a whole different personality for me, or need or want in me that I didn't even know I had.
Yeah.
I didn't even know I had that want or need until I met this person and was talking to this person and connected with this person. And so closing yourself off to any of those possibilities is just like, oh, well, it makes it a lot harder to go down that because you've blocked yourself off due to stigma.
Yeah, it effectively handicaps you. And then now you stay behind everybody trying to grow in it. And that sucks. I mean, that's where I was when I first started poly. I was so handicapped, but I was handicapped in the sense that I was being manipulated into thinking one form. What I was doing was poly when it actually wasn't. And then, later understanding it. I mean, I guess I could say the last 3 relationships before I fully grasped poly were all a form of handicapping because they all 3 of those partners saw what benefited them out of, and that's something to understand when you're getting into poly, especially when you're looking for like the green flags and red flags in partners, which, that makes for a really good video. It's understanding, what you deserve, what kind of person you're looking for, because in poly there's no shame in being picky. Like, there's absolutely no shame in being like, I want this, 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 and this out of a partner. You ain't got it, then you can't be a part of the queue. Like,
Yeah, and it's also okay to be like, yo, I know, like, just because they have A, B, and C doesn't mean, how you want them to fit in the polycule either. Some people, they don't mind that the metas don't get along. Other times, like me, I very much hate it. Because of the way I run my kitchen table poly, I just like, if this ain't working out for all of us, then this ain't working.
yeah.
Because I can't deal with a whiff between my partners or them not getting along, because then it's too much on me, and I don't like that. So to me, I'm just like, no, this is. And like, that's like one of the things like I've learned is like, okay, we're gonna vet a lot harder, because that, like, me and you learned that the hard way, is like, okay, you have 15 minutes. Gotcha. Yes. Can I read my? I'm on a different page, so I can't even mute myself.
Okay,
I want to go outside back.
kids kill me. She'll be back. She'll be back.
Okay.
Okay,
All
she's back.
right.
We're talking about vetting.
Yeah. So like we had that experience with one of my partners, and it was just like, and then I'm like, nope, I'm gonna vet partners a lot heavier now, because I realize I can't, just because that person kind of fit. They had A, B, they didn't have A, B, and C.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I gotta do better at vetting, because, and then like I added, not only for the person I'm looking for, but I'm like, I'm also vetting better for my polycule, because like the way I want it to function, that's got to be vetted better.
She wants the nerds
So,
sitting at the D&D table, everybody eating chips and shit together. I'm just kidding. I mean, it's pretty accurate though.
dude, I don't want us all in the living room like you two. I want both my partners playing video games while I read, and have like like just laying on their laps while they play video games. Like that's how I want it. Like, like, you guys play video games, I'll read, and we just all exist in the living room. It's my favorite. For the love of God, kids.
Don't worry, we're about to wrap up because it's about time. So yeah, that's essentially, that's the gist of it. I mean, I think if you're gonna ask yourself, just consider the factors of what you want out of a poly relationship and how you want it, and be ready to learn the emotional side of things and be open to the experimentation and the thought processes that come with poly. Because I mean, at the end of the day, there's so much that goes into it that you might jump in and be like, hell yeah, this is what I love, or you might jump out and be like, nah, I'm not about this shit. It can happen to anybody. It happens to everybody all the time. So
I was just conned. I was asked if they could go outside, and I'm like, yeah, it's almost bedtime, but you can go outside. And then I didn't realize it was raining. They wanted to get wet. They wanted to go play in the lane.
that is funny.
So I was gonna come out the house, soaked, and be like, I need to change clothes. So yeah. What did I miss?
I was essentially getting ready to do the wrap up, just saying, if you're considering poly, then you just consider the options on what you want and what you want to get out of it, and take the time to vet the people, take the time to do the things.
And we'll talk more, as things go on about vetting but talk to other people, and I mean there are groups out there, they'll you can always message us, if you don't know anybody in your personal life or you don't know where to go, you can shoot us a message, comment, and we'll talk to you, help you walk through things. And those just keep yourself open-minded.
Yeah, that mean at the end of the day, being open minded and understanding what you want. That's the key to having. I mean, honestly, that's the key to having a successful relationship, whether you're poly or monogamous.
Monogamous, yeah.
Just being open to the ideas of change and not being set in a way. Because I think that's the habit, is that a lot of people nowadays just set that this is the clear cut way to do it, but then they don't want to go any different.
Yeah, because even in monogamy, I mean, life will throw you curveballs and be like, well, job lost the house, lost this, and then it's just still a natural relationship in the couple because somebody's been going through emotional ups and downs or medical issues or whatever it is. Life can shoot you a curveball, which will give you a hiccup in the relationship. Relationships go through ups and downs, and you got to be open for the change. I mean, some person can, well, we've covered from that car accident and everything, but their mood is different, their behavior is different, their atmosphere on life is different, or or they lost a job and they've got a new job, and their personality changes with that. So, being open for that is, and it's not just men and women that go through these life changes. I mean, I think most of the time people think that women only go through these mental life changes when they have kids, or men only go through it during, a midlife crisis. But they happen all over the place.
For real. So, just things to think of. But that's what we're going to call it for tonight's stream. We appreciate you all who came out and enjoyed and watched. If you have questions, you can leave them in the comments on YouTube. Or, there's a Discord somewhere on my Twitch. We have a Discord and all that stuff. And you're more than welcome to message us and ask all the questions you like. But we're going to get out of here. It's almost time for kids' Betty Buys and adult David's Betty Buy because he's a baby. And we just hope you come back for the next one, which will probably be the week after next. We're trying to find a good Wednesday schedule because I have other stuff I like to do on Wednesday. I go play bingo. Leave me alone. I missed bingo tonight. I'm just kidding. I'm not upset about missing bingo. But yeah, come back, check with us more, and we'll keep you posted. I'll keep everything updated on social media so you know when these are gonna happen. But we love you guys. We thank you for stopping back on our first episode back after such a long hiatus.
Yes. Thanks everybody for coming back and chilling with us. And we look forward to you joining more of our podcast.
Hell yeah. All right, guys. Y'all have a good night. Tell somebody you love them. Bye.
Bye.